In being a big Alien fan and of course having this channel, I'm always keeping an eye out for Alien-related news, especially now that we have both a new movie and a television series looming ever so closely. However, there was a recent news story that almost eluded me, and that's what I wanted to talk about today. It's news actually related to the original 1979 film, specifically the iconic alien egg and a new controversy surrounding it. Just about everyone can recognize this image, whether you're a mega fan or have never even seen the movie. You know the association. The giant, ominous egg, cracking with a burst of light emitting from within, graced the poster and countless video covers for the film, as well as the classic teaser trailer for the film, which first announced to the world that in space, no one can hear you scream. It's instantly recognizable. Since the original 1979 release, it has been the subject of countless homage, parody, tribute, and heartfelt reference. It's a piece of art so well done and so perfectly paired with its tagline that when you see it, or a version of it, you know exactly that this relates to the classic beloved film. This marketing aspect to the film was so effective and so memorable that I guess it's rare that we ever stop to acknowledge that this egg, as seen on the poster, is not at all the egg we see in the actual film. The reasoning behind this isn't too complex, and more of a matter of the advertising for the film, while in sync, being a separate entity. Here's some background information from J.W. Rinzler's book, The Making of Alien. The advertising agency's 72-second trailer consisted of parched Earth standing in for the alien planetoid and an ominous egg that cracks open. The alien ovule was actually a hen's egg salvaged from early test footage. The teaser trailer created a sense of foreboding, and it was the creative touchpoint for the titles, title designer Richard Greenberg added. With no voiceover or other descriptive devices, the trailer ended with a tagline, "In space, no one can hear you scream." The poster's primary image of the hen egg also had become the primary image for the film's trailer and Fox's big marketing push, rather than an egg that actually appears in the film. The ad people worked up the present ads before they saw any of the film, Walter Hill said. As far as we're concerned, it's just an esoteric image. It's not supposed to be specific at all. The egg is a metaphor for the alien. Originally, we had a Giger egg that we liked very much for the ad prototype, but the ad people finally couldn't reproduce it well enough, so they came up with their own version of it. The rest is history, and arguably one of the most memorable trailers and posters ever to be associated with a film. So it stands to reason that this differently designed egg has its own place in popular culture. So much so that when Alien was re-released in theaters in the form of the director's cut, nearly 25 years later, this giant prop egg was donated to the Smithsonian Museum to commemorate the occasion. Here's an article from the Los Angeles Times in December 2003. Sigourney Weaver, who starred in the movie, presented the 100-pound silvery grayish egg to the Smithsonian National Museum of American History on Wednesday, along with an original script and several still photos from the movie. "It's a great honor for our movie," Weaver said. "I also think that people will get a big kick out of getting that close to an egg without a facehugger jumping out at them. The 3-foot-tall egg doesn't look nearly as frightening as it does on the big screen. It will eventually be displayed with other movie memorabilia, such as the ruby slippers Dorothy wore in The Wizard of Oz and Harrison Ford's jacket and hat from Indiana Jones." The 1979 thriller Alien, directed by Ridley Scott, launched Weaver's career. She then starred as the extraterrestrial-slaying heroine Ellen Ripley in 3 more Alien movies: Aliens, Alien 3, and Alien Resurrection. A wonderful moment for an incredible film. An important prop from our popular culture preserved in one of the world's most eminent museums. All's well that ends well, right? It would seem that way, but as it sat in its new home, the large extraterrestrial egg held a shocking secret that would not be unearthed until 2 decades later. About a month ago, the Smithsonian quietly announced some new findings regarding this egg. Here's the article from Smithsonian Magazine. Ryan Lintelman, the entertainment curator at the Smithsonian's National Museum of American History, has determined that the giant prop egg 20th Century Fox donated to the museum in 2003 comes not from the 1979 sci-fi horror landmark Alien, as one of his predecessors believed, nor from the trigger-happy 1986 follow-up Aliens, as Fox originally claimed. Instead, Lintelman believes the object, made of a blend of wax and latex over a form of plaster and wire mesh, was built for the 1991 teaser trailer for the divisive 3rd film in the franchise, Alien 3. viewed by many critics as a less imaginative iteration of the visual and thematic ideas that had made the first two pictures in the slime-dripping series so widely admired and imitated. The eerie prop is now on display in the museum's new exhibition, Entertainment Nation. Both Alien and Aliens were brilliantly executed pop expressions of the anxieties of their respective eras. Arriving at the end of the bummed-out 1970s, Ridley Scott's Alien presented space travel not as adventure or exploration, but as just one more way for greedy corporations to exploit their employees. Weaver, in her first major film role, played Ellen Ripley, a warrant officer aboard a cargo ship that answers a distress call and unknowingly picks up a horrifying stowaway, the magnificently ugly XenoMorph, designed by Swiss surrealist H.R. Giger. Ripley is the only member of the crew to survive the encounter. Aliens, James Cameron's 1986 sequel, began with Ripley's lifeboat being recovered after she drifted in a state of hibernation for more than half a century. Unable to shake off the dual traumas of her alien encounter and the deaths of everyone she had ever known while she was missing, Ripley agrees to return to the distant moon LV-426 as part of a military expedition. Aliens seemed to channel aggressive 1980s militarism as powerfully as Alien had expressed post-Watergate, post-Vietnam cynicism. But it also slyly undercut the bravado. Despite their superior weapons and technology, all but one of the colonial marines who accompany Ripley on her quest are picked off in battle against the creatures, leaving her to slay the dragon on her own once again. Lintelman says the egg is emblematic of the cultural import of Weaver's character Ellen Ripley, a resourceful if reluctant warrior who has a habit of being both dead right and disbelieved or dismissed, usually by men. We were thinking about Ripley as a working mother, Lintelman explains. And the way this idea of, can women have it all in American society, is reflected in Aliens. That's not really what it's about, but that's what the cultural conversation was around it at the time. That cultural conversation, coupled with the movie's healthy profit, naturally made Fox much hungrier for a third entry in the R-rated, kid-unfriendly franchise than it had been for a second one. Seemingly without knowing it, the studio had tapped into the zeitgeist. Weaver wasn't quite the first woman to headline an action picture, but in 1986, 3 summers after astronaut Sally Ride had become the first American woman in space, the public was primed to embrace her character more completely than ever before. The demand was there. All Fox needed was a story. The Alien 3 teaser, made after Fox had already spent millions of dollars on script development and set construction, but before its producers had agreed on exactly which of the various screenplays they'd commissioned was actually being shot, misleadingly implied that the Alien threequel, arriving in cinemas Memorial Day weekend 1992, would be set on Earth. It wasn't. Following up on Alien's classic tagline, "In space, no one can hear you scream," Fox's marketing arm had come up with a sequel tagline deemed too good not to use. "On Earth, everyone can hear you scream." It's a good bet that any Earthlings in the orbit of producers David Giler, Gordon Carroll, and Walter Hill circa 1987 through 1990 heard plenty of screaming as the trio tried to answer Fox's demand for another sequel. The producers bought and discarded several other screenplays before finally committing to a radical vision pitched by New Zealand filmmaker Vincent Ward. Ward imagined a sort of space monastery populated by an all-male religious order that used futuristic technology only insofar as necessary to sustain life support on their artificial planetoid, which was patterned on 10th century Earth, complete with artificial lakes and wheat fields. Their built environment looked like it had been made entirely of wood and glass, with its occupants eschewing all post-industrial conveniences, even electricity. When Ripley crash lands on the planetoid along with one xenomorph running loose and another one growing inside her, the monks regard her as a kind of witch. Ripley begins to suffer quasi-religious hallucinations and to doubt her own sanity. In the end, she walks into a fire, sacrificing herself to save the others from the alien queen gestating inside of her. Weaver loved that version and finally signed on, and set construction began at Pinewood Studios in London based on the Ward script. Then Fox assigned the film an inflexible Memorial Day 1992 release date, even as its leaders were getting cold feet about making their pricey presumptive blockbusters so depressing and weird. With pre-production well underway and millions already spent, the studio demanded big changes intended to make the film more resemble the grimy industrial aesthetic and the action-oriented thrust of the first 2 Alien films. Ward refused and was shown the door, though he'd retain story by credits on the final film. Predictably, the studio also wanted Ripley to survive, but Weaver put her foot down. She would only make the movie if she got to die at the end. This would explain why the next sequel in Weaver's last was called Alien Resurrection. Ward's replacement was David Fincher, a 28-year-old wonderkind who'd worked at Industrial Light and Magic and directed eye-catching commercials and music videos, but never a feature film. Unlike his predecessors, Fincher had such a miserable experience on his seminal Creature feature that he's refused to discuss it since. The Alien 3, on which cameras finally rolled in January 1991, was a much-diluted version of Ward's idea, hastily rewritten by Giler and Hill in a way that recast the monks as convicts throughout all the religious stuff, and still allowed them to use the massive sets they had already built, but rewrites continued throughout the shoot, and Fincher never saw a completed screenplay. After months of filming, and with the production hemorrhaging money, Fox finally recalled the principals from London, knowing the movie was unfinished. After assessing what Fincher had shot, some 2 or 3 features worth of footage, in the estimate of film editor Terry Rawlings, the studio greenlit a few weeks of additional photography in Los Angeles in early 1992. By the time the movie came out that May, Fincher had all but disowned it. So, while the Alien 3 egg shares space in American history's Entertainment Nation exhibition with props and costumes from more artistically whole, and infinitely more upbeat films like Rocky Balboa's Robe and Captain America's Shield, it also functions as a sort of accidental emblem of the way franchise-driven filmmaking can go awry. The Rocky costume, just a few feet to the left of the egg, represents a film that, in its optimism and general sense of uplift, felt utterly radical upon its release in 1976. Certainly Alien, with its depiction of a beleaguered blue-collar space crew whose bosses turn out to be entirely willing to sacrifice their lives to obtain a potentially profitable specimen, is, for all its innovation, much more characteristic of its era than Rocky was. And, of course, both Rocky and Alien would beget many sequels of variable quality. While the Giger-designed eggs seen in this series have a slimy, leathery texture and a 4-petal design at the top, this one more resembles a chicken egg, with its mottled surface and grayish hue. The crack across its front surface, recognizable as the point from which a fluorescent green light seems to emanate in that 1991 trailer, is the identifying feature from which Lintelman determined its origin. He says he and other curators even considered placing a light bulb inside of it to replicate its on-camera effect, but they determined putting an electrical connection inside the display case was too risky. Considering the film's fraught history, you can't blame him for being reluctant to tempt fate. So, there you have it. For nearly 20 years, this egg was displayed at the Smithsonian, while incorrectly attributed to the first film, while the whole time it was from Alien 3's trailer. Much like the '79 film, it's a very well-known teaser, and still much talked about, but for entirely different reasons. The egg prop remains at the Smithsonian today, also for different reasons than what was originally intended. That's the great thing about art, though, isn't it? It's truly a living and breathing thing. Its meaning and interpretations can become different as the culture changes, or in this case, as new information becomes available. While the 1979 egg didn't match with the actual egg in the film, Walter Hill's comments about it being a metaphor ring true, and they certainly still ring true for this prop, even though it is from the third film's advertising. With this new information, it takes on a further meaning. It's emblematic of what a painstaking process developing a film can truly be, the writing process in particular. Love it or hate it, the film is a crucial reminder of just how integral the role of the writer plays in these big productions. This video is being uploaded in May of 2023, and as we speak, we're in the midst of a historic Writers Guild strike that's sure to shape the future of movies as we know it. There is a lot at stake. The writers are fighting for their recognition as being such an integral role, and studios sadly lose sight of that fact. My support goes out to the writers, and I'm confident your fight is not in vain. Stay strong. I'd like to thank you very much for watching today. A very special thanks goes out to Brandon James, Grizz4756, Jackson Roche, Jason A. Faney, Justin Pierce, XenoZip, and XenoShadowMorph, Queen Tiers of the Patreon Hive. Thank you to Gregory Ford and John Griggs, the Hive's Praetorians. A very special thanks goes out to Lady Anne in the Ellen Ripley Tier of Excellence. And in the role of WEYLAND YUTANI executives, Emuric, Nanashi FX, Nicholas Butta, and Wesley A. Weaver Jr. Be sure to subscribe and to catch up with Alien Theory over social media. You can follow me through @alien_theory on Twitter and @alien3yt on Facebook and Instagram for more. And until I see you next time, this is Alien Theory, signing off.